Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to a very special edition of Factions of Freedom. I was actually on the show Spoon of Consciousness with Sachin, again, talking about, you guessed it, building the Matrix. So without spoiling too much, let's get right into it. Alright, sounds like a plan.
Welcome to the Spoon of Consciousness podcast. My guest today is EJ, and today we're talking about building the Matrix. So before we go any further, what does that even mean?
I guess the best way to explain the building the Matrix concept is as it sounds. You know, the name explains it. We've all seen the Matrix, and we see what's being built around us. We see how in the actual movie The Matrix that the humans removed from real world reality and actually put into this digital matrix, so to speak. That's what we see taking place, I think, around all spectrums of life, through social media, entertainment, and even politics to some degree. It's not some virtual or pseudo reality, but it is matrix oriented, and there's a lot of different things that kind of allude to how what their intentions are is to destroy the exterior world with. I'm sure you've heard like Elon and now Mark Zuckerberg talking about trying to create what's it called? Neural laces, neural implants, devices that literally turn your brain into a USB device. Have you seen that?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen too much of it, to be honest.
They're working on it. I'll tell you that much. This is something that Elon Musk himself has been pushing, I think, since 2015, 2014. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg has been talking about coming up with telepathic technologies that help us interact better with this technology. That's why he has his, I think it's either Site 4, S4, or F4, or F44. It's a Facebook development branch. Basically where they're working with things like DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, all kinds of other agencies, three-letter agencies that are building these types of technology. And the reason why I say that they are in the aspect of building the Matrix is because they're meant to pull us away from the already existing world and put us more so into the Facebooks, into the Instagrams, into the Twitters, into the YouTube, and so forth.
So is that basically the first step to actually having that big thing jabbed into the back of your head like they have in the Matrix movie?
I feel like, well, what constitutes a step? Are we already there? I mean, what are our cell phones? They could be the beta version of it. That's why I feel like right now we're in the infrastructure phases. We're seeing this stuff being built around us. I mean, people will willingly go into something knowing that they can create their entire world, they can create their entire existence, they can create other people's existence, they can essentially play God in this digital matrix. The idea that, and this is what's crazy about it too, they kind of beat me to the punch, Hollywood, but there's a movie coming out directed by Steven Spielberg called Ready Player One, and that's basically some of the premise of what I'm talking about with the Building the Matrix series, is the fact that the world, due to pollution, the exhaustion of resources, climate change, if you want to name it that, all the other effects that people are having are destroying the planet. They're affecting the planet negatively. But on the flip side, technology is still advancing. The world itself might be depreciating in value, but technology is still around. So rather than trying to fix the planet, we willingly go into this virtual reality that has everything we would want. We have haptic responses that make us feel like we're running, where we can feel the wind, where we can feel the breeze and all of these other things, but it won't be real. Our bodies will still be here. And the eventual goal of all this type of technology, all these efforts and these projects is to do that, is to take us from our bodies and put us into this matrix that we see being built around us.
Man, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like, In the Matrix movies, there are those who like. Do you remember the Frenchman, the guy who enjoys being there? He's like, why would I want to go to the real world? It's shit. In here, I can control everything, and I can make this woman have sex with me. I can eat the finest steak or whatever it is. But then there's the line, right, between real and fake. And would you want to live in the real world if it was a post-apocalyptic wasteland, or would you rather live jacked into the machine, believing that that's it?
I feel like, that is a very deep question, because that's a lot of stuff that people are going to have to start asking themselves in the coming years. I did a show earlier this week on the Underground Resistance Network where we talked about this type of thing. What happens whenever we try to start seeing people upload themselves into this cloud consciousness? What happens to the exterior world? What happens when we have people turn off and just, upload themselves to the cloud, upload themselves to Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox or something like that, as provided by Google? But already, and I had an article pulled up for you. I'm not sure if you want me to read it or glance on it real quick. But on August 9th, 2017, USA Today came out with an article saying that you will get chipped eventually, and that's mainstream media pushing to normalize microchipping the population.
So,
go ahead.
So like we microchip our dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that so? So are they suggesting that, like, are they introducing the concept that we're gonna be microchipped so we can be tagged at all times? We can see.
Yes, and this is why it's called the mark of the beast. Think about, and this is put the beast system that we see where everything is running off of credit and debt. That's the beast system. That's the matrix. That's the establishment, the two-party duopoly, however you want to look at it. That is the military-industrial complex. What is basically considered America. When looking at this type of stuff, all these things that come with it, the idea is to have a mark in our hand where we buy and sell. That's why it's been prophesied in the Bible. It's been talked about, and why it has so much controversy surrounding it. They don't want people to actually think about the biological disadvantages of having technology in you. They don't want them to think of the spiritual implications of why that's bad. They just think that it applies only to the physical, only to what's convenient. You think you're cool because you can pay for your Starbucks with your hand. And so, well, what rights did you give up for that convenience? You would never have any privacy, because not only do they have all of your information, they literally have your blood flow, they have your heart rate, they have how your body is doing, simply because of that fact that you wanted to wave your hand to buy your Starbucks. But that's okay. Don't think about that, because that's the first phase. When we see implantable technologies, wearable technologies, and things that kind of correlate or correspond with the Internet of Things, the Internet of Technology, so to speak, we see them trying to, again, build the matrix. And the idea of this is to separate our spiritual self from our physical self, because these things they're supposed to be together. What is our digital personality versus our real world personality? I mean, are we really out here truth seeking? Are we really out here doing investigations? Are we really out there picking up other people's litter? Are we really out there trying to create change? Or is that just what our Facebook profile tells us? We can believe in all these different lies until something here in the real world has to affect change. But as you can see, with the advent of social media, of the internet, of things like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, a lot of people are living lives that aren't their own. They're coming up with lies to live. So that's going to be a lot more appealing than people having to actually go out and go collect trash. Than people actually going out and having to feed the homeless. People actually going out and collecting donations and talking to people.
Here's the thing though, right? Like I agree to 100%. There's a lot of fakery going on, and I used to do that shit. I was trying to like portray this persona online, like, yeah, I'm having a great time, but really I was dying inside. Then when I saw like a lot of people are doing that, and that's cool, like whatever they want to do, there is that side of it. Then there's another side where people are using social media to spread truth, like yourself, like Billy Carson on Forbidden Knowledge. A lot of these truth and conscious pages are spreading positive messages or truth seeking messages. And without social media, we probably wouldn't know about these police shootings. Um,
Oh no, I was going to say you're right. I agree, and I agree. I feel like what social media is, and we've got to realize this, is it's a great tool. It can either be a tool of liberation or it can be a tool of enslavement. You can either use it to create a prison for yourself, or you can use it to liberate yourself and show other people the beauty of the world that we are living in. I chose option two.
I think that's true for pretty much anything that has great power. So for me, along my early journey, I learned the hard way that psychedelics have basically the same applications that we just spoke about. If you use it as a tool in the appropriate way and you respect it, you can use it to help liberate yourself and then live the example. Or it can trap you and you're basically just a zombie because you want to escape your reality. And I think with social media, we face the same sort of conundrum because you can promote your positive message, you can promote your authentic lifestyle, or it can go the other way and you can just be a slave to the likes and the follows and the shares and all of that stuff. Like someone was saying to me the other day, how do I get more likes on my page? And I asked them, why is that important to you? Oh, because this person is getting them. I was like, yeah, but what's that gonna do for you? Oh, it'll make me feel better. And we need to like address why this is. But I guess that's more of like a psychology session more than a
The psychology of Instagram is crazy, and if there's anything I can like speak to on the advice of that is don't try to emulate other people, because I've met some of my role models, some of the people that I thought were on point that I actually wanted to follow, who had what I thought were great messages, and then I learned that that wasn't necessarily the case. Learn to people have got to learn to like be themselves, and that's again where we find more of this like spiritual, psychological aspect of the building the matrix. People are finding themselves with technology, but when they find themselves, they use technology to explain themselves through it. So it's like they're finding themselves only to give it off. Does that make a weird kind of sense?
Yeah, I think I can definitely resonate with that because like all of these conscious pages and like I always say like you can read the quotes, you can have the t-shirt that says woke or whatever, and you can go vegan or whatever, but none of that is going to help you as much as facing you yourself, like what you've done, who you are, your past transgressions or whatever crap. Oh,
Sorry,
sorry,
a
connection back.
little bit of connection problem.
Okay, cool. Is it back now?
Back now.
Okay, so
It's
yeah,
it the bottom just started falling out. It started raining all crazy over here. So
no, that may be something to do with it. Hopefully not.
hopefully, but
Um,
I agree.
yeah,
I think, and this is one of the reasons why I like social media. It creates like a collective consciousness, like a digital collective consciousness. I was talking about that in the actual episode I did earlier this week. If we think the internet is filled with information, think about the intranet. Think about all of the collective information we have running through our veins, coursing through our veins. All of that is just put onto the internet. That's why we see it having so much power. The internet is a representation of us. It is a collection. It is a representation of the collective consciousness. So social media is a more interpersonal, directed kind of interpretation of all this information. It allows people to kind of post about things that are important to them, isolate real issues that they consider important, and then live that lifestyle. And that's good, because I don't think anybody can truly be a master of everything. I think we need masters, plural, to start teaching in order for us to start fixing some of these problems. So I agree. There's a lot of just like So a lot of psychological issues, a lot of spiritual controversies when it comes to talking about social media, because it's a tool, and it really is upon the user to figure. Out purpose.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think like in tying this back to the whole idea of the matrix, like I see a lot of people are losing themselves, like we said, to the likes and all of that stuff. But also like you can create. Do you remember this scandal that was about this artificial world called Hambo or something like that?
No.
I can't remember if that's the right word for it, but basically there was this virtual reality game where you create your own avatar and you interact with people. It's like a huge online chat room, and basically this person was saying during that chat they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm really depressed and I'm suicidal," and basically people encouraged that person to take their life, and this was years ago. I don't think it was any time recently, but that really got me thinking because my parents were like, "Oh, you shouldn't use chat rooms and you shouldn't go online because of that." And on the one hand, yes, that's a very unfortunate incident where someone who obviously was seeking help was not offered it and was actually offered the opposite. But it got me thinking, like, the online persona that we portray. If we're like, they say give a man a mask and he'll reveal his true self. I guess like that's where the anonymous section in YouTube comments and anonymous things like those chat rooms, they reveal our true identity. Whereas social media, we're trying to present a fake exterior a lot of the times. Now I don't think this is everyone by all means, but we all know that there's a lot of this going on. And what I find quite interesting is that in the whole idea of the matrix, like it's encouraging us to create who we want to be, and again detaching ourselves from our spiritual identity, which is like who we truly are.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and that's why whenever you look at any of these people that say they became millionaires overnight, doesn't make sense. They have all these accounts that have no real content to them, no actual meat. It's just fake fluff. The signs are there. So I think it's good that like we still have that discernment within humans to notice like whenever somebody's like faking like that, because you can see it. You can see it. It's not really like they can't really cover it up. I mean, you can see when trolls are there. You see when agents are there. You can see whenever people buy their followers. You can see whenever people can't follow through in conversations and debates. Like you were saying, uh, social media does allow for ways for people to reveal themselves. I mean, I have to engage people all the time in the chat room, or I'm in the chats and the comments of my post, and it gets down to the point to where people don't want to talk about facts so much as identity, the superficial level of stuff. It's like, oh well, you have this many followers, you have this kind of account, so you must be this kind of person. It's like, well, did you see how I got to this? How I got to this number? Why this account is the way that it is, and why we are growing in the way that we are. I think, and this is again where it ties back into discernment, and whether or not we fully let ourselves get absorbed into all of this chaos. I think people need to distinguish between page and personality. It's like because you might have a conscious page, right? People might not expect for you to use swear words or tell somebody to go to hell. They're like, oh my gosh, I thought you were more consciously or more woke than me. I thought you were more, spiritually aware. Why are you swearing at me? It's like, don't bring that into this because you're being a jerk. I had to use that because that's what you understand. You don't understand the facts. You understand the fighting. And so there's a lot of that in between there. You got to like actually figure out if people are there to talk facts or if they're really just there to push a fight. And I think this is where we're dealing with information at 2017. People don't, with fake news, misinformation, and all this other stuff going on, people want to know what's authentic and what's real. And I think that's very hard to get a sense of what's real behind posts, behind quick little, snippets, 15 seconds or a minute or, little tweets. It's hard to discern what is actually real. And so when you have programs like yours, programs like the Underground Resistance, programs like Stranger Than Fiction News, and programs like myself, you start to see what it is that people are actually looking for. They want to know what's happening, and they don't necessarily want to be told everything will be all right, because they can tell themselves that. They want to know what's real, I guess. And in this world where so many people are making up things about themselves, doing it for the likes, and basically being misguided, it gets kind of tricky. So if there's anything I can kind of say to people, that are listening in the future, is like, guys, I don't know, did you hear that?
Yeah.
You hear that?
Sounds crazy.
Wow. Okay. If there's anything I can say is be true. Be true to you. If technology is telling you to do something, don't do it. If you're telling yourself, I need technology in order to do this, you might need to contemplate it. But if technology is helping you accent what you were already doing, do that instead.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to go about it. And I think obviously, people get caught up for the likes instead of like realizing their purpose for it. And I'll say it to this and I'll leave it alone. Ever since I was like probably 12, 13 or 14, like in Australia, I wanted to, because I started radio my 8th grade year in middle school, right, in Australia. I did like 8 to 12. And it was super cool because I thought I was super cool. I was doing radio stuff, switching tracks. I stopped doing that. We moved back to America, and I've been a nerd ever since. So radio and computers have been my entire history. Now that I'm older, not much has changed. I'm still pretty computer savvy. That's my job, network administrator. That's what I do. And with my own podcast. So what I'm trying to say is be true to you. If technology is there, it will help accent what you are already doing. I've been wanting to do this since before I even knew like what a profession or a career was and distinguishing the two. I knew I wanted to talk about all this crazy stuff, other people's experiences, and all the other weird, crazy conspiracy theories and the things that we're not being told, the things that they're hiding away in books and that they're burning in knowledge. I wanted to know that before all of this stuff came into play. And now that I'm here, I tell people this, I feel honored to be in this position to even talk about these types of things, because who listens to other people's thoughts, really? And I'm just grateful to be in this position. So if there's anything I can say to wrap it up, is remember why you're doing the things that you're doing, guys. Don't do it for the likes. Do it for yourself.
It sounds really like I don't know what the word is, corny maybe. I don't know if that wraps it up, but like you know what you just said, I really 100% agree. I do a lot of free coaching work with young people, and I always tell them, because they're growing up with Snapchat and Instagram and all of this shit. And my one of my clients, he was like, man, I don't know what to do. So-and-so and this person's story is like this and mine is, I was like, do it for yourself and not for the damn likes, because those people are very temporary. Like that, they're going to be gone, and you're never going to see them again after the next few years. And one of them was like, oh, that's really corny to say. Everyone says just be yourself. But it's like, the reason why everyone says it, the reason why learned and wise people say it, is because it's damn true. Like yours is the ultimate truth.
That's the real meaning of life, whatever purpose you give it. The meaning to life is whatever you make it. There's no guideline here saying that we have to do this. There's no guideline saying we have to research this, that we have to prove points, that we have to make websites, that we have to do podcasts, we have to talk about this. We're doing this because this is the purpose that we designed for ourselves. No one said, hey, here's a contract. Go make this ragtag podcast, make this work after 5 seasons. Yeah, and then you'll be good. No one told me that. That's what I designed for myself. And so whenever things happen in the aggregate of creating a purpose for yourself, you know, I think, I don't know, to me, I kind of get sidetracked and blown away because of the amount of things that come with it. So really, people, you've got to do it for yourself. You can't do it for your neighbor. You can't do it for everybody else. You have to do it for you and the reasons that you chose.
Here's something that I find quite interesting, which is when you tell people you're basically living your life for yourself, right? The Matrix wants to take our power away from us. They want us to externalize all of our power and say, oh, there's something much bigger than me at play here. I don't have the power to create my own reality, whatever. When we realize that, like you just said, we give our lives the meaning, we stop searching for everything externally. And that's the one thing that these people don't want for us. The agenda that's at play here wants us to believe that, my neighbors need me to be like this, or my parents wanted me to do this or that. And all of that stuff, as soon as we start, giving our lives purpose, like taking the dog for a walk can be like one of the most purposeful interactions ever, if you want it to be. And when you start living like that, you begin breaking down that system. And for me, like over the last probably like the last 3 years, it's been a transformational journey from always externalizing and being like, I need a relationship, or I need a drug habit, or literally just bringing everything back to me. That has basically liberated me from every part of the Matrix possible. And of course, like, I'm not living outside of it. I'm not living on top of a mountain somewhere in the middle of Japan, which hopefully we'll do one day. But I'm not like, I'm just like everyone else, yet I am myself. And that's like the true power to be had, like to be experienced here. And this system, like, I could go on about how bad this system is for years, but I don't want to bash the shit anymore. I think the most constructive use of our time, all of us, is to say, yes, we don't like it, it's defunct, and fuck that shit. Let's create. Exactly. What does that look like for you, that the whole idea of creating something different?
Yeah. lately I've not really lately, all throughout this year has been a constant harping on the concept of renaissance, on change. I'll say this, and then I kind of want to weave back into building the matrix because we touched on a lot things like this social media, the artificial energy source, this Wi-Fi, this Bluetooth, whatever's trending, telling you how to live your life. That is the system giving you impulses to think a certain way, to think that you are only successful if you do this. You are only successful if you live this way. You are only successful if you have this likes. You are only successful if this many people watch. You are only successful this way. This is because we have an entire generation of people that have grown up in that. Like you said, these are kids that are growing up with Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, and they're like, I don't know what to do. The beautiful thing is you can do whatever you want with all of these tools and still people will watch. That's the crazy thing. You don't even have to be doing anything special. You could just be living and people will still watch that, ironically enough, because of the times that we're in. The reason why I say that is because we're moving into a surveillance state. We're moving into a 24-hour 1984 society, to where everything is monitored, everything is tracked, everything is chronicled, everything is logged. This is the technocracy. This is what I mean by building the matrix. This is the exterior part of it, the infrastructure of it. They need to have a house in order to put us in all these types of things. What does change look like when we're talking about this establishment, about this unruly beast, this beast system? And that's why I have to tie back into the start of this year. I've been talking about renaissance. Renaissance, renaissance, renaissance. Not revolution. Revolution, we're literally just kicking the can down the road. Just, okay, well, we got that guy out of office. Now let's get another guy in the office. Oh crap, turns out he's human and he ends up corrupted. Now what? Say, and that's the cycle. But with renaissance, we can put forth new ideas. We can come up with brand new systems of not enslavement, but of liberation. We can come up with technologies that fix the planet, that fix us, and make us in alignment, not only with, and this is where I'll probably catch slack, but cosmic energy, God, the universe, and other spiritual things like that. And we have a history of that. We really do. Like technology, as we have it right now, is very rudimentary. It's very, very counterintuitive or counterproductive. I mean, we have to literally type out messages with our thumbs, and we think that's efficient. While it might be efficient now, there's definitely been more ways to be more communicative. Telepathy, maybe go down that route, but we can't talk about telepathy because that's not the age that we're in. We're in a technologically advanced or technologically induced age. We're not in a spiritual age where we can communicate on that level. So we decided to go towards the technological path. Renaissance to me is just that, is going, instead of furthering ourselves into this matrix, going back into the spiritual path. Like you said, retreating inwards, realizing why we created these technologies in the first place, so that these new technologies we create, they can liberate us from this enslavement that we're in, from this system. It's not going to just be technology that has to have that renaissance feel to it. It's culture, it's politics, it's society, it's how we engage one another. The simple act of having like a conscious conversation about solutions and things to do to move the ball forward, that is renaissance. Revolution is saying, oh man, I can't wait till Trump gets out of office, and that's it. Can't wait, because after Trump's out of office, who's gonna deal with that? After Trump's gone, then what? So if we start talking about the ideas in which Trump represents that we are trying to push forward, because I'm not supporting Trump, but any of those types of ideas are different from an actual person. Revolution, you are dealing with people. Renaissance, you are dealing with ideas. Does that make sense?
100%. And I'm really glad you brought this up, the idea of Renaissance versus revolution, because I have basically the same belief, but I didn't put the word Renaissance and revolution to it. But definitely, man, like, look, Donald Trump, whatever people want to say, I don't know the guy, so I don't talk about him. I don't know who he is and don't know anything about him. Don't watch the news. I don't give a, like, all of that stuff. I just look at it like he's the puppet. There's someone pulling his strings, telling him what to say and do. Cool.
Yep.
That's always going to be the case, regardless of who is in that office. That's what's going to happen. So what we do is, like you said, a renaissance of ideas. in the French Revolution, in who is it, Louis the 14th or 13th, they stormed the Bastille and they took him out and they guillotined his head off, and then they wanted to give the power back to the people. Cool. That's not gonna work in this day and age. But the radical suggestion that we need to get rid of the leader is like where we need to start looking towards, in my opinion. Obviously, like, maybe people won't agree with that, but having like, so the UK had a referendum to decide to leave the European Union. Like, I don't vote because, like, well, that's another story, but like, I don't see that the political system even it's the illusion of democracy. It's not true democracy. The idea of having a referendum for big decisions that need to be made. For example, the war in Iraq, 1 million people marched to say, I don't want this war. They still went ahead anyway. They said, fuck you, your opinion doesn't matter, we're going ahead because we need the oil, we need to make good connections with America, whatever. Cool. Like, I can say, yeah, I can see how that's going along. The thing that really gets me going when we have these discussions is that most people, and I'm talking about me included here, they don't really like, when we talk about politics, we don't feel involved in the discussion because, again, this matrix has perpetuated the idea that your governor, your senator, your minister, or your prime minister, or your MP, or whatever it is, has more of a say than you do, so your voice doesn't matter.
Well, you touched on that before. They want us to externalize our power. They want to disenfranchise us from our power. But when we internalize it, that's when we actually realize how powerful we are and how we've been actively engaged on all of these distractions, because that's all they are, is distractions. They don't want us to spend the time to actually improve ourselves, improve others around us, and start making quick change, because that's how it starts. When you improve on yourself, you can improve on everything else. You have a plan forward. It's not the blind leading the blind. That's following politics, saying that this guy has my best interest at heart. No, your best interest at heart is your best. You know that. Your heart knows what's best for you. Don't listen to other people. And this matrix that they're having us buy into, and I'll put it to you like this. Think about it like this. They say that Mark Zuckerberg is thinking about running for president in 2020, along with The Rock, Michelle Obama, and a few other people. So outside of our current reality, looking like Mike Judge's Idiocracy, we are living in a very strange time. Assume Mark Zuckerberg does win the presidency. That gives that man unprecedented power to everything. Everything has a Facebook. That is the technocracy. Imagine, as we talked about at the start of the show with Elon Musk's Neuralink and Mark Zuckerberg's mind-reading technology, imagine, just for say, that Mark Zuckerberg was able to download everybody's information from Facebook, and they also own Instagram, so subsequently Instagram. All of that information, not the wisdom, all of that information is uploaded into Mark Zuckerberg. He would essentially be a god. That is what these people are essentially trying to do. They are trying to disenfranchise us from our power so that they can absorb it like technological vampires.
It's interesting you mentioned like the concept of Mark becoming some sort of like god. I don't know. Have you seen the movie Marvel Avengers Age of Ultron? I think it was called.
I saw a little bit of it, yeah.
It was a long time ago. I can't really remember most of it, but basically, like, they create this AI robot, and the AI becomes intelligent and self-aware, and then it begins merging all the data across all of the internet into its mind, and then it becomes this like uber powerful thing. And I don't like to speculate on sci-fi and stuff like that, because the only reason why is because I don't know too much about it. So the reason why I bring this up is because we're not too far away from AI becoming aware of its own intelligence, like the whole thing with Skynet and from the Terminator movies and stuff. I don't think it's that far-fetched. I really don't believe that because of the way that the Matrix is designed, we probably wouldn't even know what the fuck was going on if that kind of stuff was to happen.
I'll put it to you this way. I talked about this earlier. Have you you know Blizzard, the people that own World of Warcraft, right? Okay. You've heard of StarCraft, right?
Yeah.
And you know League of Legends type of stuff. So I forget what they're called. There's like time-based strategy games. I forget what they're called.
Is it an MMORPG or something like that?
Yeah, they're basically where swarms of teams of people take on other swarms of teams of people.
Mm-hmm.
Check this out. Google's parent company Alphabet bought an AI, DeepMind, to run StarCraft as a research lab, right? Whenever I think of like a omnipotent, all-powerful, artificially intelligent God, as we were talking about with Mark Zuckerberg putting on the helmet and Ultron as well, they would have to be able to release the drones, release the puppets, so to speak. If you put that into the StarCraft concept, to where you're just releasing waves and waves of people, basically code after code after code, that eventually that AI is going to figure out the formula that it's attacking, so to speak. And if this is just a simple representation of a game, what happens whenever they actually upload that StarCraft DeepMind Google AI onto something that has the capabilities, maybe by Amazon with all the drone delivery that they have, to literally send out attack drones? They're already creating taser-style drones. They're already creating lethal weapon drones. They're also creating non-lethal weapon drones. The idea behind this is for them to have unilateral surveillance, unilateral control of everything within this grid, within this matrix. I mean, that's why, and this is something I wanted to touch on earlier. Places like Baltimore, Chicago, and now California are starting to do things like citizen threat ranking, pre-crime technology, literally stuff from Minority Report, to where it's like, oh, I see you've been liking a lot of Facebook pages that have to deal with guns and patriotic apparel. Well, we're just going to have to raise your threat level ranking to a 2. Oh, you're starting to post, like actually write posts and do videos about anti-government stuff. Well, we're going to raise that to a 3. Oh, you're organizing rallies and talking to people or networking. We're going to raise that to a 4, and so on and so forth, until it gets to a point to where, like pre-crime, like Minority Report, they will arrest you because, well, you violated their citizen threat ranking. They're doing this also in Canada with I think it's called it's I forget what they call it, but China is also doing it with this thing called Sesame Credit. But Canada's version of it is where they give you an app, right? And with this app, you can do certain things, you can go to certain places, you can like certain things, and it gives you money to basically be in accordance with the governmental approved app. This is thought control. This is a weird secondhand version of thought control where they're trying to, or social engineering, where they're trying to tell you how to act a certain way. If you want to be considered free, you have to operate inside of these parameters. You can't disturb the system. You can't buck the system. You can't have a dissenting opinion. And that's why whenever we're talking about all this stuff, we have to realize that right now we live in a privileged time. In this future that we see being built up around us, where we don't even know what's happening in China because of how much censorship they have on their people, it's going to be a lot worse. So when we're talking about building the matrix, it's not far off. And there's a lot more that comes with it. Like this article right here, or not even article, document. Agenda 2030, transforming the world for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The whole idea behind this, and this is what I think is the blueprint for the New World Order. I feel like they will use this. They will use Agenda 2030 to, as we said at the start of the show, say that the exterior world is getting too bad. We need to move into these population centers. We need to move into these smart cities. We need to move into these places that are carbon friendly. That are in accordance with Agenda 21, that are eco-friendly, environmentally safe, and things like that. But at the same time, they're going to be destroying this exterior world with things like Monsanto, Bayer, whatever Amazon decides to buy, if Google decides to get into the agricultural business, and so on. This is an anti-human agenda that basically seeks to tell us that we're obsolete, the world is much better, and the technology that we have says that it's much better without humans. So let's create a world without humans. That's why it's called sustainable development, because this time frame that we are living in is unsustainable. They're trying to move us forward into a time frame where they can have all of this unilateral surveillance, all of this technocratic information, all of these polls, these stats, these studies, these documents, all of it. They want to literally have it be easily manageable, sustainable. That's why whenever we're talking about people like Mark Zuckerberg running for president, or even the owner of PayPal meeting with Donald Trump, or even Jeff Bezos meeting with Donald Trump, they are trying to build the infrastructure for the platform to create this sustainable world. I know that sounds wild, but think about it. Why don't we have any houses on the countryside? Why is everybody trying to move to California, or everybody trying to move to Dallas or Denver or whatever these huge population centers are? It'll become cheaper. It'll become more accessible. It'll become convenient, as we mentioned before, with the marks in the hand. It'll become convenient to stay in the city. There's a video I saw the other day. They came out last year. I don't know how I didn't catch it, but it was called Planned Opolis. And the idea behind it was everything was planned. You didn't have to think for yourself because AI ran everything. It told you when to eat. It gave you an Uber for whenever you needed to go to work. It gave you a stimulant for when you were at work, so you didn't think about work. That wore off when you were done with work. That sent you to the work, or that sent you to the market to go get your genetically prescribed food. You see, and that's it. And it's really scary for people that have the eyes to see, because that's what they're trying to do. They don't want us to literally leave our house. They don't want us to think for ourselves. They want us in these places where they can control us, experiment on us, and inject new stimuli into this experiment that they're doing, upgrade us, so to speak. And it starts with very simple things like getting the iOS 10.43, or the Android Samsung Galaxy 8, or the whatever. Staying up to date, creating this mindset that says you do not have success, you do not have a future unless you got one of these babies. You're not going anywhere unless you are with this collective. And I think, and this is something that we talked on before, what does Renaissance look like? What does change look like? Instead of actually harping on it, we've got to learn to create like a pro-human world. We gotta learn to turn these off. We gotta learn to, really get back to center. Because if we keep going down this path where they have an agenda laid out for us in the future due to our technological dependencies, they're just gonna keep us in cages and keep us actively engaged on their distractions, where we can't think about ourselves, where we can't think about the human race, where we can't think about progression, where we can't think about things like Renaissance because we're too busy chasing things like lights.
Yeah, man. The whole time you were speaking, I absorbed a lot of what you said, and this is the thing I've seen over the last I haven't been alive for a century, but from looking at history and looking at where we're going with the way that technology is advancing, the Matrix started off with an idea, right? And they implemented it with slavery. So America and a lot of Western society is built off the back of slavery. And companies like JP Morgan and a lot of the banks are still making money off that, still making money off those times of slavery. But they realized that, we can't enslave people physically and dominate them anymore. So instead of just a few people, we'll enslave, like you said, the minds of everyone. Will use them as slaves. So it started off with the workers in factories and kids in schools. Similarly designed process. The workers in the factory, they have a break in the morning, a break at lunch, then they finish for the evening. Kids break for recess and stuff periodically throughout the day, training the mind to be put through the system. Then during work, you need coffee, stimulant, maybe nicotine break. After work, you need the alcohol or the drug of choice. Some people, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And that has progressed slowly but surely over the years to now where, you know, I searched for a job when I came out of university for like almost a year, and I just got continual rejections until I was like, okay, I'll settle for something I don't really want to do. So I started working. In this job, I saw like people who'd been working there for over 10 years they didn't see themselves as human anymore. And this scared the shit out of me. I said to this lady, I was like, oh, how long have you been working here? And she said 18 years, nearly 20 years. I was like, oh, so how do you find it? And she said, I'm like part of the furniture. And I was like, no, you're not. I didn't say anything to her at the time, but I was like, no, you are a human being. Like you're made of flesh. You're not a desk. I can't put a computer on you and start working. Like, it doesn't work like that. But again, this is how the system has basically enslaved us to believe that you need money. So any of your other priorities, like your mental well-being, your physical health, fuck that. You need to go and trade your existing time here for these pieces of paper. And again, it goes a lot deeper than just, oh, you need money to survive. The illusion is so rich in detail that it's tricked us into believing that, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, I think they call it, or like, you know, I am this job, I am this salary, I am this, you know, I'm valuable because my girlfriend or husband or whatever it is looks like this. I am valuable because my clothes look like this. This branding on this hoodie means that I am some sort of success. But really, like, that whole thing is the way I see it, is the advanced form of slavery. It's the advanced form of this matrix. And, you know, we've been talking about how it's been built over the last however many years. I think the way that it's moving is, like you said, virtual. You know, you're not, you like in the movie The Matrix, their bodies are hooked up to those biothermal machines, and the machines are just harvesting them for their, you know, heat. And now we're being harvested for our tax money, for our work in our labor. But I think all of that stuff is here to just keep us occupied, right? Because the more time that we have that is occupied, the less time we have to look within. And of course, like, you know, I'm not proud to say this, but I've done this experiment before when I was younger. When I was 19, I tried to wake someone up, and I tried lots of different ways. The best way that I saw that worked, and it didn't work in the long term, but in a very short period of time, was asking this person questions about what they regretted about their life. And they were twice my age at the time. And every time I asked them, you know, how did you want things to look when you were this age, when you were my age? That's what got them questioning the system. But then, you know, if you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. That's a story for another time. But the idea of keeping people occupied, keeping these illusions so rich in detail and so attractive with all the sex and the bright colors and the money and all of this stuff that comes with it. It sounds like it's so far-fetched, but it's the truth. And that is just insane.
No, you're right on point. I definitely agree. I feel status is what we're talking about. Status and the lack of personal awareness.
Mm.
You know, and I don't know. I'll share something personal with you, real quick. I think probably whenever we got back to America, I think I was probably about 14 or 15. I remember, and this is gonna sound crazy. I remember I put myself in a cave with no light, no water, no food, uh, nothing, no cell phone, no nothing, no dog, no family, no nothing, just darkness for like 3 days. I lost my mind. I lost my mind, for sure. But I remember like finding myself, like finding out like finding out enough that at 15 I knew like, dude, it's never gonna be the same. That's like whenever I started having transcendental experiences. That's whenever I started having more paranormal experiences. That's whenever I started having more synchronicity, like really opening up myself to the universe. And looking back, it was probably literally me just fasting, you know, fasting and not having like all kinds of toxins and food and stuff in my body and all kinds of other stuff. But it was at that age that I was able to notice the difference between literally being plugged in, because like I said, I've been involved with computers my entire life, being plugged in to literally separating myself and retreating inwards, finding that inner peace. I think a lot of people, because we are in a 24-hour society, there is always something to do. They don't ever have downtime. The only downtime they have is when they're in their room watching Netflix and then on their phone at the same time. You see, like,
Oh,
it's like, how does that work?
man, I have to admit, I was guilty of doing that, man. You know what they call, one of my ex-colleagues, he calls it double screening, and he tells his children, don't double screen. If you're gonna use one, you turn the other one off. Cool. But I was triple screening at one point. I had a movie on in the background. I was playing a video game, and in between that, I was on my phone. Like I I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's content overload to stop you from allowing something to resurface. Because a lot of us on our unconscious journey are running from something. For me, there was a shitload of stuff that I didn't want to address about who I was, what I'd been through, all of that stuff. But when I turned everything off, that came up, and I was like, oh shit, I need to escape it. Give me the alcohol, give me the weed, give me the nicotine, whatever it is. And that like helps you just distract. But one thing you said about fasting, someone's way of life is called breatharian, where they don't eat food, right? And they just live from the air, and they only eat at certain times. I don't know. Basically, like, I asked them, is that something to do with the density of the body? And he said to me, look, when the body is dense, like when you feed it meat and processed stuff, it becomes very dense, and it decreases your vibration.
Yeah.
When you fast, you're bringing those toxins to the surface. And that's why during fasting, we can experience some like altered states of consciousness, like hallucinations, maybe hearing voices or whatever. When I tried this, and I'll be honest with you, EJ, I thought it was a load of shit. I thought it was a load of horse shit. I was like, yeah, whatever. I did this thing, right? In the morning, the night before, I didn't eat. So from 6 p.m. till the next day, I woke up about 6 a.m. And I said, okay, I'm not going to eat today. And I was tripping my fucking balls off, man. I'm not even joking. Like, I was hearing stuff. I was seeing things, and not like ghosts or like weird patterns or anything, but it's like my hand had like light around it. And I was hearing stuff like, you need to go outside. And I would sit outside, and I was like, whoa, I was getting download after download after download. It was crazy.
Can I jump on that real quick? Brother, you were speaking truth. You were on point. You were hovering above the target. Yes. And let's touch on that real quick. Let's touch on that. We are literally seeing this. Yes. What I'm trying to say is all these things, like social media, all this other stuff that like we were actively just engaged on, it doesn't let us receive natural signals from source energy, from God, from the universe, however you want to look at it. It literally broadcasts its own signal. It is interfering with how you interpret information, how your body, how it communicates, the chemistry of your body. It literally changes it. You're walking around with a friggin' pocket stick of radiation. Obviously, it's going to change the rhythm of your body. So when we take those 2 seconds off, we get back to point, we get back to source, we get back to being human, instead of just these profiles, instead of just these pages, instead of just these ideas. We become like ourselves. And that's a lot of what this whole building the matrix is they want nameless people, they want sheep, they don't want people to think and feel for themselves, because when you do, you have the chance of making someone else feel, you have the chance of making someone else think, you have the chance of changing the whole course of destiny, of someone's destiny, simply by saying, think, feel, be human, act human, have compassion, like love. And that's something that in this society we don't see, because everything is so instantaneous. There's no way for us to digest wisdom. That's how you really learn. You learn from what you've learned, like you gain the truth from the information that you've actually gotten. It's like we might post thousands of different things on social media. That's great, but it's what those thousands of posts represent, the wisdom that we're trying to encapsulate with all of these different posts. And people have to understand that the human experience, no matter how technologically advanced we think we are, we're still humans. And this is something that I think is important that you touched on. You said during your fast, you saw that your hand was surrounded by light, right? I believe, and other documents, other historical proof, other archaeological texts prove this as well. We are moving into the age of Aquarius. We are moving into as you said, a different period of density, so to speak. Our bodies our bodies are here, but it's the house for the energy that's coming through. Why are we talking about spirituality in context to the matrix? Is because the matrix is trying to cut off spirituality. What we see taking place unilaterally is the awakening, is the consciousness of lifting, the next phase of our spiritual development. We can't think about spiritual development if we're too busy chasing likes. But the people who have created the institutions for us to chase these likes have already been aware that this change was going to come. So their response to it was to create a platform and a facility to harvest all of this awakening energy that we see here. This is why we have so many people waking up like on a super fast pace, like on a super fast scale, is because they are literally trying to digitize our awakening. They are trying to digitize destiny. All the things we see taking place are meant to happen. There's great upheaval that's supposed to happen, unrest, murder, death, crazy, whatever you want to call it. It's part of change. These things have to happen, but it's what comes from that change that's really important. And so it's like, what do we do with this time frame that we're in? Do we sit here and watch it all on our phones, or do we take our destiny into our own hands and actually do something with it? So I'm glad that you said that, during your fasting, you were able to see the light and see the density and see that your body was a vessel for this energy, because that's very true. We are all experiencing this growth, this ascension, this awakening in so many different ways. And their response to it is to literally put us in a box and say, you better abide by these 160 characters. You better speak some truth with these comments right here. And that's it. And that's it. They want to try to capture or screenshot our awakening process. And there's no way to do that. All right. So I'll say this real quick and I'll let you have it. Sorry. I had somebody message me the other day because I put up that the Matrix trilogy was on Netflix, right? They asked me if Google or if Netflix was a conscious organization, if there was an organization that we should trust. I told them George Soros has funding in, he has shares in Netflix, so it's really whatever. But on the flip side, this is what I think Netflix is trying to do, because we see them exposing pedogate, sexual abuse within the Catholic Church, the Matrix, and all kinds of other things like that as well. Transcendence, transhumanism, all this New World Order stuff. There's a lot of stuff on Netflix. I feel like what they're trying to do is create a level based awakening. This is why you have people who say, oh, you're not as woke as I am. You're not as conscious as I am. You're not on the level as me, because they watch some documentaries on Netflix. Therefore, they're super woke. That's not the case. What's happening is we're having a false sense of consciousness being put onto us by these types of institutions, because they are very well aware that we are in a time frame to where we want to expand our consciousness, we want to grow, we want to know more. And so their response is to feed us half-truths, things that don't necessarily liberate us, but keep us in a state of either perpetual confusion, keep us in the dark, or that don't really, like I said, liberate us. They're not there. That's why we have to do our own due diligence and ask, what is real freedom? Freedom to think, freedom to move, freedom to feel, freedom to love. All these things are very important because they are natural, inherent human characteristics. But people have to understand that our bodies, the same way our pages, our profiles, our social media, everything, our bodies are merely the physical representations for the energy that is coming through. And that's the same thing for our social media pages, the same thing for the podcast, the same thing for the posts. It's a representation of the energy that is coming through to merely educate and make people aware. But if people can't understand how there's like a weird spiritual, symbolic, metaphorical interpretation to all the stuff that's going on, then they will be put into this matrix that we see being built around us. And that's why, regardless of what you see from me, the podcast, and everything else, it is only information based. I'm not here to tell you anything about me. You're here to hear about the information that I represent. I'm not here to say, hey, look, a black guy, talking about that crazy stuff again, black conspiracy theorists, look at me, like my page. No, I'm here to tell you guys, we got a lot of stuff going on. And unless we actually dust our shoulders off, put our thinking cap on, put on our big boy pants, and ask what is happening, we're going to be put inside of this matrix that they're building around us, where they harvest our energy and harvest our intelligence. And I don't want that. I want to share it with people who are deserving.
I couldn't have put it better myself, and I think that's a great place to leave our discussion. If I was to add anything else, I'd probably be doing it an injustice, because you wrapped it up very nicely. And I say wrapped it up, I mean, we could go on for years talking about this stuff, but in the interest of saving everyone's brain from exploding, we can call it a day. But EJ, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I really appreciate it, and I always enjoy speaking with you. If anyone's got a question, which I know I've got a billion for you, where's the best place for us to get a hold of you?
You guys can contact us on our website, factionsoffreedom.gemdo.com. We're basically everywhere on social media. We were jumping all over the place with them. Yeah, we're on all those same places too. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Snapchat's kind of my personal one. I do a lot of motivationals on Snapchat, but I leave all the other platforms for informational types of things. You can also email us at freedomsfaction@gmail.com. And make sure you guys are checking out the website, because we did a whole lot to restructure so we could compensate for all the information and the content that we're putting out. So I definitely, if anything, tell people to go check that out. We're constantly working on better ways to get the information to you guys, and we diversify it because you guys deserve it.
Definitely. I do like what you're doing with the website, man. And all of EJ's links will be in the description and on the screen, so make sure you're checking those out. Thanks everyone for joining us. You can catch the podcast every Wednesday and Saturday, and clips during the week. And we'll see you all next time. Peace.
Later.